Hey, yo, what's going on, guys? It is a brand new episode of Buy or Bust. We're talking about the potentially best card you can get this season, minus Season Pass, or maybe is it better than this Season Pass? Anyways, we're talking about the first steps, Human Torch. We're going to go ahead over some key synergies, counters, the good and the bad for this card, as well as 3 decks, and what is the floor and the ceiling for this card. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. In case you did not know, First Step Human Torch is a 3-cost, 2-power card with the ability End of Turn plus 1 power, as well as additionally, once per game, if your side here is full, double this card's power instead. So you won't get the +1 and the double. It'll do the double instead of the +1 at the end of turn if you do fill this card's location. This is what it looks like in-game. Of course, you're seeing this with Surfer. Of course, it's going to work with some of these fantastic 4 First Steps cards. But are there other synergies for this card as well? Let's go ahead and jump right into some of the key synergy cards. One of the first cards I'm going to talk about here is going to be Kitty Pryde. You might be like, how does Kitty Pryde synergize with this card? But using Kitty Pryde to help fill that lane, so you're also not just completely locked into that lane, with First Steps Human Torch is something that I think is going to be very useful for this. Of course, Silver Surfer, because, Surfer giving this card +2 power, and then you fill the lane at the end of the game, or like you filled that lane, if the ability procs at the end of the game, then your Torch is going to double in power. And also Invisible Woman First Steps, because of her activate ability, all of your end of turn cards do their ability again. So they'll go off twice in a singular turn, so you'll get +2 power that turn with Invisible Woman's activate, which is really nice into this situation here with Surfer. I'm not quite sure if the Invisible Woman activate is going to work with Human Torch. I don't think so, because it's once per game, so I don't think it's going to work that way, but maybe it's something you could test on like Proving Grounds or something. But anywho, getting that extra power, and this kind of does help your Torch in a way as well if you read the ability. Because if you look at the counters over here, of course, Red Guardian targets First Steps Human Torch, so then he can't, get the end of turn ability to go off. Shadow King, of course, sets him back to his base value, but he still end of turn get that +3 or +1, so he go to a 3/3. And then Shang-Chi. So if you double this card too early, Shang-Chi does hurt you, or if you get it to 10 power too early. But since this is an end-of-turn card, there is a world where you're almost Shang-Chi proof. In a sense, it really just depends on how you are playing out the card and how you kind of manage what your opponent's doing as well. Moving on to the good for this card. It is almost Shang-Chi proof. Like I was saying, it's almost, not entirely. You can, of course, get it to 10 power beforehand and then fill the location. It goes to 20 power, so that is something that can totally happen. But if you don't get it to 10 power before the end of the turn, Shang-Chi does not hit that card because it's an end-of-turn ability. Next, of course, it doesn't double until you want it to. So your opponent is going to be wary of it doubling every single turn. Are you going to fill this lane now? When are they going to fill this lane? Are they doing it at the end of the game? When's stuff going to happen? So you got to kind of keep that in mind. You have that as something you can mess around with, but also, locations can offset what you're trying to do, and Torch might double then, or your opponent could clog you, and then your Torch doubles early. So just keep that in mind when it comes to the doubling of this card. And then, of course, there is large power potential with the double, being able to also buff this with Surfer, even like a Gwenpool, Galacta, Forge, like different ways to buff this, kind of like a Dokken. But like with Dokken, you have to discard the shard or destroy the shard to be able to double Dokken, whereas this, you only have to fill it. You only have to fill the lane and double it, which is a better condition, I think, in a lot of instances opposed to Dokken, even though I am liking Dokken and Surfer, if you guys did check out this week's video. And then, of course, last but not least, it is an immediate good plug-in and play, whether it is going to be in Surfer or even some sort of like Hand Pump or just some Elsa Gwenpool kind of things, like just buff cards kind of stuff opposed to Hand Pump. It should be pretty solid into that as well. Moving on to the bad, though, Shadow King is being very popular right now. With the new season with Mr. Fantastic First Steps, Surfer is really popular, which means Shadow King is going to also be popular. Shang-Chi is going to be popular. There's 2 focal tech cards in order to offset all the buffs that people are going to be messing around with. I'm seeing still some more of that Sarah Invisible Woman style deck, where you're able to hide a Shang-Chi behind your Invisible Woman, and then that happens like end of turn. I believe it's based off of play order still. So if you play like the Invisible Woman before, I think it's end of game for Invisible Woman instead of end turn. So end game will always subsede, what just happened with your Torch end of turn app happening. So then Invisible Woman would proc, and then your Shang-Chi should come out. I believe that should be how it works. And then, of course, you can only double Torch if you fill his lane. If you can't fill his lane, Juggernaut also could counter you there, so you can't fill the lane for Torch. Torch doesn't get that double, and your opponent just got Juggernaut value as well. That's the only way you can double this card. It's a bad potential late card draw, too. It can go to a 3-3 because it's an end-of-turn function. So I guess even then, like if you fill the lane, it goes to a 3-4. So it's kind of something feels bad when you draw it late game. Moving on to the floor and the ceiling for this card. It's nothing crazy when it comes to the floor and the ceiling. I guess it's crazy power output. Like, at the floor, it's a late draw, or it's played out and you're unable to double it, so you're just getting the +1 power end turn on the Human Torch. Okay. Middle of the road is you're playing on curve with no buffs, and then you can get it to double, so depending on which turn you actually play it out, like let's say you play this out on curve, by the end of the game, you play it on turn 3. Turn 3, it goes to a 3-3. Turn 4, 3-4. Turn 5, 3-5. It would go to a 3-10 end of the game because it does not get the +1 and then double. So, 3-10 is good. Like, that's middle of the road. That is good, 3-10. If you can get the double off. If not, this card becomes a 3-6, which still 3-6 is still pretty good stats for a 3 cost, And then on the top end, the ceiling for this card is you're able to buff it, whether that is with Surfer, whether that is Gwenpool, whether that is Galacta, and then you double it end of the game. You maybe are able to dodge Shang-Chi and get some value that way too. Like, I feel like what's cool about this opposed to his Shaw, like Shaw of course gets buffs every single time. Like he gets the 2 and then he gets the additional 2 when he gets a permanent buff. But Torch doesn't get its double until the end of the game, so you're able to dodge Shang-Chi, I think is really beneficial. Whereas, Shaw just gets absolutely nuked by Shang-Chi if you've buffed him too much. So, like, being able to dodge that, I think, makes this card pretty awesome. But let's go ahead and talk about the 3 decks we have brewed for this card. So, first thing we brewed up is going to be a super greedy Silver Surfer deck where we are running Human Torch, we're running Shaw, we have Galacta, we have Gwenpool, we also have Surge, fantastic, like Pedro for steps. We also have Makari, Thastos. Juggernaut is our tech piece to kind of potentially protect some of these cards or offset what our opponent's trying to do. We're really just trying to get some huge cards here. There's a world, I've been talking like with Cougar and stuff about like Surfer where we do Sage instead of Carter to get some value there, or even like a Frigga to copy maybe even a Human Torch that got buffed, so you have 2 Human Torches. Like there's a bunch of different ways to kind of mess around with what you have going on here, but we got some greedy Surfer for the first deck. For the second deck, I'm thinking kind of not Shuri Kitty because Shuri is just not feeling the same anymore. You maybe could try Shuri in this list if you would like. But this is pretty much a Kitty Frigga list, but also you could get 2 Human Torches, and if you get Human Torch with the buff, you have Frigga in order to have 2 potential huge, large outputs for Torch. You also have Kitty. You could go into a full, huge Kitty line as well. And then, of course, you have Hope to be able to get extra energy to be able to do a lot of these different plays. It really just depends on what you're trying to mess around with and trying to hit here. But potentially a couple different options there. You have Shang-Chi for tech as well. I'm trying to revitalize some way to play Shuri Kitty again. I don't know what it is right now. I'm probably going to test some more of Butt's list that he made a couple seasons ago with the Frigga, because Frigga, I'm actually really liking Frigga a lot right now. This card I feel like is really, really underrated. You're seeing a lot of Victoria Hand, but I think this card is good in a lot of other places too. But that's going to be our next list. The last list we have is going to be Victoria Hand with Frigga. So the idea here is you're doing your Victoria Hand stuff, but instead of speed, you have First Steps Human Torch. And First Steps Human Torch, more often than not, should get bigger than speed. Also, another great card for you to Frigga, which could give you Victoria Hand value. Another good card for you to be able to Prodigy. So I'm thinking about stuff like that in order to get some really just good value out of just not only Victoria Hand stuff, having an alternate line. I think First Steps Human Torch, I wouldn't be surprised if kind of does replace that speed slot. especially since you don't have to keep your max energy into every single turn, like hit your energy every single time to be able to get value. It automatically gets stuff in the game. So I think that is really solid when it comes down to this card. But let's talk about the rating for him too. So I think this is a very strong card. There's a world where this could be 5 stars. There is a world. I think it needs more testing, so I can't give it the 5 stars immediately off the bat when it comes to the theory crafting here. But I think this card is going to be pretty solid. I think it's going to be moderately flexible too. It's a good 3-drop just to kind of play out. Because it gets to 3/6, even if you don't fill the location, which is really good, which is kind of like with speed, you kind of are hoping you get the same thing. But this also has the option to double its power, so it can get bigger than speed is what I like too, and you're not reliant on having to hit your energy every single turn, which I think gives this card another step up as well. I don't necessarily think this will be adjusted, but maybe if they think it's too strong, they might make it a 3/1. Which would be, I think, pretty unfortunate. But like with a 3/1, it's still at the end of the game can go to a 3/8 potentially with no buffs. So just keeping that in mind, I think this card is very solid. Which, I mean, spoiler alert, I think you guys should get this card. I think this is a buy. Especially if you like Surfer, especially if you like Hand Pump, especially if you just like buffing cards. I think this is going to be a really solid card, potentially the best, pack card of the season. I still think First Step's fantastic. Pedro is the best card this season. But this synergizes so well with that, synergizes so well with Invisible Woman First Steps too. Like, I think this is going to be a tremendously good card. If it falls flat, it falls flat. But, like, at the end of the day, we talk about this every week, we are theory crafting. These are what we are assuming these cards are going to be like. And, we don't necessarily know how they are genuinely going to be until we actually get to test with them. Because at the end of the day, we have no hands-on experience. The meta can totally shift. We have an OTA next week. The OTA may shake things up, and maybe this card falls flat because of the OTA next week. We have an OTA and a patch next week. So we have 2 different things that could totally offset what we're doing. But at the end of the day, I want you guys always to spend your resources on the way you guys want to spend your resources. Let us talk to you about these cards and describe them and give you information. But at the end of the day, it boils down to what you want to do, what brings you the most fun, what gives you the most success in this game itself. Resources still are fairly limited. So at the end of the day, you got to min-max as much as possible in order to fit your playstyle. And then also, they do nerf good cards. So if this goes and is overperforms, there's a world where they nerf it. Unless they're selling a lot of it and this card's making them a lot of money, then they're not going to nerf it for a long while. But, bad cards get buffed too. Sometimes, not all the time. So even good cards get buffed. It's really weird. But I do want to say, at the end of the day, we're still, this season, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's kind of all over the place. The meta's all over the place right now. Yes, there's still a lot of Surfer. Yes, I feel like every other game I'm playing against the freaking Zabu, freaking Mr. Sinister, Galacta, Tech Pile, every other game. So maybe the meta's not over the place for 50% of the games, but the other 50% you're playing against some random stuff. But I really do appreciate you guys for all the love and support. I'm going to continue trying to pump out as many videos as possible, and we got some cool new stuff on the way. We're going to have a tweet out. If you guys have not checked out the tweet yet, I think we're going to post it probably tomorrow, about Kang. If you guys have any ideas of what you would like Kang to be adjusted to or reworked. Apparently there's a rework in the mix, but Dan's not going to be going over them on the app. So definitely be on the lookout for the tweet on my page, Dance's page, and on the Yap's Twitter. But until then, thank you guys so much for watching. Definitely feel free to like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. It's been real. God bless, and Tucker out.